You may have seen Laura Ingraham had the story about the Fargo Public School Board voting down that, hey, we're going to rescind and no longer say the Pledge of Allegiance before our Fargo School Board mornings. And I just want to remind you, it wasn't voted down like 5-4, or I mean, it was 7-2. 7-2 in Fargo, North Dakota. They said, no, we do not want to say the Pledge of Allegiance before our school board meetings. I didn't know all of a sudden Fargo was transported into San Francisco, but apparently that's what's happening these days in our community. And I've got something that it will blow your mind even more. My phone was blowing up today because of a letter that Dr. Rupak Gandhi, the superintendent of Fargo Public Schools, I think Fargo City Commissioner John Strand, Representative Josh Boucher, some others sent down to Florida educators. Can somebody please tell me why the Fargo School District is having anything to do with Florida educators? Super producer Chris Larson is going to introduce us to that in a moment. But first, I want to share this with you. So last night, Big and Rich, I'm not a big country music fan. So Big and Rich was in West Fargo. They're at the lights. And because this news about the Pledge of Allegiance and the Fargo School Board is going all over the country, all over the world, they ended up having the entire audience say the Pledge of Allegiance. So a friend of mine got the video of this, of them saying the pledge, and then Big and Rich had some choice words after they said the pledge. So thank you so much to Stacy Herman and Jen Songstead for getting me this video. I put it out on Twitter. It's already at like 14,500 views. It's just been blowing up. So I want to play for you what Big and Rich did last night, and then listen closely to what they had to say to our members of the Fargo School Board.
States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Amen. Take that, commie school board.
Oh!
I hope some real mamas and daddies and aunts and uncles and grandpas and grandmas step up and start taking over those local spaces of leadership. Take it away from them. They got no business up in this town. Huh?
Wow. So there's Big and Rich calling the Fargo School Board.
We will not sing another song until that man walks up on the stage.
They had a bunch of vets up on stage as well, but the Commie School Board then suggesting that, hey, the parents need to get out and take over these board positions. You and I have talked in the past about another solution, which I'm going to get to in a moment here, because before I do, I want you to just think about this now. Here we are in Fargo, North Dakota, 7-2. They voted to say no to saying the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America because they say it's too divisive. It's not inclusive enough, even though the exact words in the pledge say indivisible with liberty and justice for all. Not some, not a few, but for everybody. But apparently all is not inclusive enough for members of the Fargo School Board. So, Dennis, I'm going to get your reaction on this in a moment. But before I do, I also want to have super producer Chris Larson share with us. This was texted me today from several people. Again, I've not had a chance to peruse this because I've been driving. Super producer Chris Larson has. But super producer Chris Larson, if you can share with our audience this letter that was sent out essentially from the Fargo schools to Florida educators.
Absolutely, Chris. Now, this letter was printed on Fargo Public Schools letterhead, and I really want to focus on the first paragraph. It is sent and authored by Dr. Rupak Gandhi, Fargo's Public Schools Superintendent, Dr. Tamara Uzelman, the Director of Equity and Inclusion for Fargo Public Schools, a Fargo City Commissioner, John Strand. He's also a former Fargo Public School Board member, and Representative Josh Boucher, the Minority Caucus leader for the North Dakota House from District 44. The first paragraph says, "Dear Florida educators, you don't know us, so we'll start with this important statement. We are okay with saying gay. We are way okay with saying gay or straight or LGBTQ+. Though we have a long way to go to become a fully inclusive community, we believe it is an injustice to diminish any individual's gender identity in any way. People should be welcome to show up as their authentic selves." Goes on to say the purpose of our letter is twofold: to demonstrate support for Florida's LGBTQ+ education community in response to Florida HB 1577, and 2, to share an opportunity to be embraced, welcomed, and celebrated in Fargo, North Dakota for individuals struggling with what must be a very difficult decision about whether to stay or leave Florida for a more supportive community. It finishes up that paragraph by saying, we don't expect nor want educators to leave their state or their warmth, but if they decide to do so, we want to share what you can expect from your supporters in North Dakota.
Super producer Chris Larson, thank you for that. So essentially, again, I think we all know that Florida bill never said you couldn't say the word gay. And so now you've got teachers, people in education, not reading the bill clearly, and yet using the talking points to go and try to recruit Florida educators to come up here and teach in Fargo. Again, Dennis Lindahl joining us. He's with the Tioga Economic Development Corp. He's the executive director there, also has a morning show on 1090 KTGO. And he had not heard about the situation from the Fargo School Board about the Pledge of Allegiance. So I want to get your reaction to the fact that the Fargo School Board says it's too divisive. And the biggest talking point was we're upset that it says under God in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Well, it is divisive, and it's divisive to people that are on the opposite side. So it causes division when they don't agree with it. It is, this is what we do. And there's, we say the Pledge of Allegiance. It is a part of education. And, really, what are we trying to do when we say the Pledge of Allegiance in school? We're trying to reinforce the allegiance, right? The allegiance to the republic, the allegiance to the republic, this is the basis. Okay, so it's difficult to have politics and take the politics out of education because school boards are considered political subdivisions. They do have the ability to tax.
What's political about saying the Pledge of Allegiance?
No, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying it shouldn't be political, but the nature of school boards is political. So it probably is easy for them to take any issue and pull it in, because they are political subdivision. They are a political subdivision. They have elected officials, and they exact taxes, right? They can have taxes.
Now you're talking my language.
Right?
Here's what I want to get to, folks. This is where Big and Rich says, hey, I hope real mamas and papas and grannies and grandpas are going to go take over these school board positions. I say, you know what? Enough's enough. Right now, if what you hear from these people saying we're not going to say the pledge because it's too divisive, why go meddle in Florida education? Especially when you're not even being accurate about it and you're in the education system. It is time for you and I to coalesce, to come together and do whatever it takes to ensure that we have school choice in this state. Now, my preference, because you and I both know, Dr. Rupak Gandhi, very, very well paid within the Fargo public school system, that until you start taking away the dollars from these school districts, they are going to laugh in your face, like they're basically doing right now, trying to rescind the pledge. Until you start saying, look, I will no longer have my property tax dollars go to a school system that's going to rescind the pledge or go meddle in Florida education. Until you start making that kind of conversation come alive for us, they will continue to just go, whatever, sure, come to these school board meetings. We'll give you 2 or 3 minutes, but we don't really care what you have to say. That's why I believe it's critically important. And Dennis, you may disagree with this, but that we start to have school choice in the state. And my preference would be some sort of voucher system so the money follows the student, whether it's an education savings account like they have in Arizona. I don't know. All I know is I want that money being put in the parents' pockets so that if they want their son or daughter to be homeschooled, part of a homeschool cohort, part of a private school, part of a different public school, that they have got the ability to make that decision and let their own tax dollars be utilized to best educate their son or daughter. Because, I just want to remind the school board, the school systems, that our kids are not property of the state. I got about 30 seconds. I want to give you a reaction to that.
Well, I'm concerned because when you watch people's behavior and their personality, what the Fargo School Board seems to have done is they saw an opportunity, they saw weakness in Fargo, and they are moving in to recruit. They're like, oh, well, you're not LGBTQ in Florida, come to North Dakota and teach. That is kind of a predatory personality.
Interesting.
That is a red flag to me.
Interesting. All right. Carrie Lynn says, hey, that happens and there needs to be a solid line on the sand where the government doesn't get to say,